district's commissioner arrived at Okonkwo's compound, at the head of an armed band of soldiers and court messengers, he found a crowd of men sitting wearily in the obi. He commanded them to come outside, and they obeyed without a murmur. "Which one of you is called Okonkwo?" he asked through his interpreter. "He is not here," replied Obierica. "Where is he?" "He is not here." The commissioner became angry and red in the face. He warned the men that unless they produced Okonkwo forthwith, he would lock them all up. The men murmured among themselves, and Obierica spoke again. "We can take you where he is, and perhaps your men can help us." The commissioner did not understand what Obierica meant when he said, "Perhaps men will help us." One of the most infuriating habits of these people was their love of superfluous words, he thought. Obierica, with 5 or 6 others, led the way. The commissioner and his men followed, their firearms held at the ready. He had warned Obierica that if he and his men played any monkey tricks, they would be shot. And so they went. There was a small bush behind Okonkwo's compound. The only opening into this bush from the compound was a little round hole in the red earth through which fowls went in and out of their endless search for food. The hole would not let a man through. It was to this bush that Obierica led the commissioner and his men. They skirted round the compound, keeping close to the wall, and the only sound they made was with their feet as they crushed dry leaves. Then they came to the tree from which Okonkwo's body was dangling, and they stopped dead. "Perhaps your men can help bring him down and bury him," said Obierica. "We have sent for strangers from another village to do it for us, but they may take a long time coming." The district commissioner changed instantaneously. The resolute administrator in him gave way to the student of primitive customs. "Why can't you take him down yourselves?" he asked. "It is against our custom," said one of the men. "It is an abomination for a man to take his own life. It is an offense against the earth, and the man who commits it will not be buried by his clansmen. His body is evil, and only strangers may touch it. That is why we ask your people to bring him down, because you are strangers." "Will you bury him like any other man?" asked the commissioner. "We cannot bury him. Only strangers can." "We shall pay your men to do it. When he has been buried, we will then do our duty by him. We shall make sacrifices to cleanse the desecrated land." Obierica, who had been gazing steadily at his friend's dangling body, turned suddenly to the district commissioner and said ferociously, "That man was one of the greatest men in Omovia. You drove him to kill himself, and now he will be buried like a dog." And he could not say any more. His voice trembled and choked with his words. "Shut up!" shouted one of the messengers, quite unnecessarily. "Take down the body," the commissioner ordered his chief messenger, "and bring it and all these people to court." "Yes, sir," the messenger said, saluting. The commissioner went away, taking 3 or 4 of the soldiers with him. In the many years in which he had toiled to bring civilization to different parts of Africa, he had learned a number of things. One of them was that a district commissioner must never attend such undignified details as cutting a hanged man from a tree. Such attention would give the natives a poor opinion of him. In the book in which he planned to write, he would stress that point. As he walked back to the court, he thought about that book. Every day brought him some new material. The story of this man who had killed a messenger and hanged himself would make interesting reading. One could almost write a whole chapter on him. Well, perhaps not a chapter, but a reasonable paragraph at any rate. There was so much else to include, and one must be firm in cutting out details. He had already chosen the title of the book, after much thought: "The Pacification of the Primitive Tribes of the Lower Niger." And now after that reading, I'm going to have you walk through some of the bigger ideas that are within this final chapter of Things Fall Apart. Now, chapter 25, we're going to be looking at what is and what may not be a tragic hero. First thing we need to know is that a hero is a person who faces adversity and demonstrates courage in the face of danger. The big question we have here that we need to answer is Okonkwo a tragic hero? A lot of people say he is, and a lot of people say he's not. A tragic hero is someone who is a hero, but also suffers a downfall or defeat while they're facing adversity and or danger with courage. Now we're going to be looking at some of the things that make him seem like a villain. The first part of the book was almost dedicated to how he was a horrible person by non-Nigerian standards. He beats his wife for being late. He forces a confrontation with his wife over a banana tree, and then tries to shoot her but misses. He's always working. He looks down on others that do not work as hard as him. He hates celebrations because he'd rather be working. He also brutally murdered his adopted son Akimafuna to prove his dedication to the clan. He's also self-absorbed with his own success, and at the very end, he took his own life, possibly because he was self-absorbed and depressed. Now, is Okonkwo a tragic hero? We're going to be looking at that. One of the things you should look at is a hero is always judged to be a hero by the culture they're within. So you cannot judge a Nigerian hero by American standards, unless that Nigerian comes to America and tries to be a hero here. Now we're going to be looking at one of the things that was said in here that gives us an insight into the culture of the Igbo people. No matter how good his chi was, a person would achieve success only if he worked hard and led an upright life. They emphasized the importance of hard work. Is Okonkwo a tragic hero? That's for you to decide. Now, here's what he did do to be heroic. He worked harder than anyone else. He was a firm husband and father. He was also known across the land for being a fierce warrior, so much so that villages would stop aggressive action if he was sent to talk to them. When he spoke, people listened. He also had confronted the church and the white man's ways. He can be seen as being the perfect representation of the Igbo man. He confronted the messengers and even killed one. And at the very end, he took his own life, possibly to become a symbol even in his death. Now, some of the big ideas behind Okonkwo that we're going to be looking at is going to come from a lot of it from this final part of the paragraph, the last part of the book. The story of a man he had killed, a messenger, and hanged himself would make interesting reading. One could almost write a whole chapter on him. Perhaps not a whole chapter, but a reasonable paragraph at any rate. There is so much else to include, and one must be firm in cutting out details. He had already decided on the title of the book. After much thought, the pacification of the primitive tribes of the lower Niger. Now, when we're looking at this, we can see that there's a certain perspective that this is written from. We were brought on a journey through Okonkwo's life through Achebe's writing. Now, when we look at that picture that I just read, we can see that it's written in the perspective of the white man, and it was used to end this book. We also have to think that maybe the perspective of the white man was throughout the whole book, because everything had to be explained as if they were also having a hard time understanding it. So in the very beginning of the book, part 1, we can easily see how Okonkwo is made to look like a villain because we just don't understand the culture very much. Because remember what I said before, a hero can only be judged by the culture that the hero is in. Now, it's ironic that the book ends with the thought that the tale of Okonkwo would be detail-free in less than a paragraph when the entire book is about Okonkwo. This gives Okonkwo's suicide way more meaning than it would if it had not been done this way. It made him a symbol of the Igbo people. What was Okonkwo trying to accomplish with his suicide? Some people say that he was only trying to accomplish being selfish. Some people saying he was trying to become a symbol. And even in his death, he was leading a fight against the white man's ways. Now, the big idea here, Okonkwo is the Igbo people. And the Igbo people killed their own culture and traditions by not educating themselves and fighting back the European influence. Now all that is left behind for the white man is to take care of what is left over. Was Okonkwo's suicide selfishness, or was Okonkwo giving up his life to become a heroic symbol? Now, this is the assignment that you're going to be doing. You're going to write about whether or not Okonkwo is a tragic hero. You need to be able to defend your response with as much knowledge of the book that you can. Copying, pasting, and insufficient responses will be graded as an F. Now, if you take quotes from the book, that's fine. Just make sure you use citation. Like Achebe 19 would be from this book, written by Chinua Achebe, on page 19. Remember, this is not an essay. I'm not looking for an essay. What I'm looking for is some developed writing that shows that you are asserting your knowledge about whether or not Okonkwo is a tragic hero. If you give me a couple sentences, that might not be enough, and you'll get a low grade. But you don't need to write a whole ton of things. I'm looking for depth of reasoning. Depth of reasoning. It's just a way that you're thinking. All right, if you need any help, please reach out to me on Edsby, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Until we do communicate next, remember I love you all, take care, and be well.